Happy New Year, everyone. I'm the Masked Ranger, finally back with some more Black Star. I do apologize for the hiatus I took off for the Christmas season just as I was returning, but I assure you that after getting some motivation together in my mind, I am going to fulfill my original promise to continue reading this story all the way throughout 2021. So, I believe I should explain something to you quickly. Since I am recording all of this on my phone through X-Recorder, and X-Recorder videos that are recorded using it happen to take up a lot of space on my phone, I can only record like 3 parts at minimum before eventually getting a message saying that my phone is low on system space and I need to clear some out. So, my plan is, in order to circumvent that, is to make sure that I am clear and concise while reading these stories, while also making sure I don't waste any time and make it through to the next chapter ASAP. Videos are still going to be released in 3 parts, although it might switch to 2 parts depending on how well I do with this. So, without further ado, let's continue with Black Star, Chapter 3. That evening in LeBlanc had been cut short by Sojiro's bad news. He'd said his piece and shuffled out of the cafe looking 20 years older, and the group's conversation had turned hushed and terse. Futaba had huddled at Akira's cot, clutching a pillow to her chest. From the moment she'd come upstairs to when Makoto finally escorted her home, she never said a word. The rest of them, the former Phantom Thieves, laid what plans they could with what they had to work with. There was now little doubt among them that Paranoia Syndrome was both real and unnatural, if only because they couldn't imagine Akira, with his unshakable calm and steady leadership and terrible sense of humor, simply keeling over after all they'd been through. A stroke, a bad fall, an allergic reaction, all of these things were too banal to bring him down, and more importantly, they couldn't be helped or fixed. So it was a certain amount of desperation that drove their plans. A kind of willfully ignorant hope. And if there was hope, they knew it lay in Akira himself. Or, more specifically, in the wide-ranging web of contacts he'd made across Tokyo during his brief stay there. All of them had swapped stories about tagging along with Akira to some restaurant or shopping mall, only to see him get stopped and casually chatted up by a doctor or a shogi champion or a grade schooler or their own homeroom teacher. And he'd always reacted to these encounters with the exact same unbearably laid-back attitude. Ryuji had once said he'd half expected to see Akira grabbing ice cream with the Prime Minister, though this was before the office had been filled by a cue-ball-headed psychopath in designer sunglasses. Shido. Still, they had those memories. And while Akira had never been much of a talker, he'd casually mentioned enough about these other people for them to pull their knowledge into something coherent. Paranoia Syndrome was a malignant rumor, an urban legend with teeth and claws, and anyone who knew anything concrete about it wouldn't be likely to share their knowledge. But they had Akira's name, and told themselves that it would be the magic key that would unlock these strangers' minds and have them spill forth what they knew. On that cold evening, with the cafe gone dark and city air gone heavy, they took that desperate, ignorant hope, and they placed it in Akira Kurusu's confidants. Confidants? Seems like they're gonna have a big role. Like Mishima, Yoshida, Takemi, Iwai. Oh, really? Are we all here? Here. Yo. Present. I am here. Sorry, still busy. We'll catch up soon as I can. It's okay, Haru. So, to pick up where we left off, in Shinjuku there's a bar called Crossroads. It's frequented by a journalist named Ichiko Ohya. Apparently she was responsible for the majority of the thieves' positive press before things started getting out of hand with Mr. Okumura. How'd you learn about this place? Red Light District doesn't seem your speed. I stopped by a few times with Akira, long story. He also worked there part-time. Akira worked in a bar? GFC, is there anywhere that guy didn't work part-time? What does GFC mean? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I swear I saw him behind 2 different counters on the same day once. Thought I was going nuts. Back on topic. I checked out the magazine Ohya writes for, and it's not exactly reputable. But that might work in our favor. Tabloids cover strange subjects. And Ohya herself has a history of investigating stories other people ignore. She'd questioned Shujin students about Kanashiro's activities before we stole his heart. She was even looking into Shido himself for a while. Damn, you go, girl! Are you referring to me or to Ohya? Yes! Well, which one? I know that Makoto was looking into Kanashiro at the same time as Ohya, but it wasn't until that... Never mind. Sorry, serious face now. Either way, I also know the bartender there, so I'll check in with her. If Ohya still frequents Crossroads, it's a good place to start. Best of luck, Makoto. One of my sort of duties for Madarame was to act as his proxy whenever he was not in the mood to humor the press. From these experience, I can say that journalists are a dogged bunch, and reluctant to divulge their secrets. We'll see. As it happened, Ichiko Ohya hadn't been at Crossroads the night that Makoto stopped in, but Lala Escargo had been happy to lend a hand. Heavy-rouged and purple-haired, the proprietress of the Crossroads bar was built like a battleship under her kimono, and spoke like someone gargling vinegar-soaked gravel. But she had a keen eye and a flawless memory for faces, and remembered Makoto's fondly. She'd given Makoto the dates and times Ohya stopped in without even asking for an explanation. Now Makoto stepped through the door and into Crossroads, which brooded under its violet light. The bar was mirror bright, the air was spiced with lilac. While the place itself seemed sketchy, Lala herself kept it pristine. It was also empty, save for Ohya herself, staring down at the bar top as if she was preparing to kiss her reflection. Lala had said that the place was usually underpopulated when Ohya came around. A paparazzi with a ruthless ear for gossip and a memory that didn't falter no matter how much booze she blasted it in was a bad choice of company for this part of town. But she didn't mind that much, because the woman also drank as much as her next 3 best customers combined. Don't ever marry a writer, honey, Lala had said to Makoto. They all drink like fish. Makoto witnessed the evidence. Ichiko Ohya, a scraggly young woman dressed like a rather 5 years her junior, raver, and holding onto the bar like a ship's captain in a strong gale. In her immediate vicinity, the smell of lilac changed to the acrid whiff of cheap to middling bourbon. Makoto was almost impressed. It wasn't even that late in the evening, and already Ohya was so deep in her cups that she could probably dissolve iron by breathing on it. Lala Escargo's bulky frame glided across the bar to meet her. The woman was hefty, but she moved like someone on ball bearings. "Welcome," she said. "How have you been, sweetie?" Makoto smiled and opened her mouth to respond. But then Ohya's head swiveled towards her. After a moment, she got both her eyes staring in approximately the same direction. "Hey, it's you," she said cheerfully. "Hey there, you. It's been a long time. It's been too long a time." She turned to Lala. "Who the hell is she?" "Makoto Niijima," Makoto said. "I'd like to speak with you a moment, Miss Ohya, if you have the time." Makoto here is the one who got rid of Tsukasa for us, Lala said. You remember him, right, Ichi? Fifth-rate host? That blonde punk who looked like something the 80s shit out? Oh, that guy. I hated that guy. Hated him. Hated him. She seemed loath to let go of the word. She caught him trying that drop bottle trick on one of her friends and practically had him pissing himself in the middle of the street. She winked at Makoto. After all, well, girls quit seeing him so much. He disappeared a few months later. Given his type, my guess is that he had a couple of debts that got caught up to him. Ha! Disco Dick shits a brick. Host with the most found floating on the coast. There's a headline for the ages. God, I hated that guy. Hated that guy. But you know what? She slumped toward Makoto and her voice turned rough. Conspiratorial. That means I really like you. I really like you. And I want you. Do you want me? Do you want me to? Oh my god, I need a drink. She erupted in a fit of cackling laughter that nearly sent her off her stool. Lala shrugged apologetically at Makoto. Sorry, sweetie, she said. Ichi here goes from 0 to shit-faced in under an hour. I swear to get drunk, I'm not God. And give me a number, I'll tell you when I've had enough. Maybe you ought to come back another night, she added crisply. No, said Makoto. I'll take my chances. She pulled up the stool beside Ohya and sat down. Ohya glanced at her, drained what was left of her glass, and in one surprisingly smooth movement slid it over to Lala and wrapped the table. Lala rolled her eyes and went to refill it. So, Ohya drawled. What can this humble little scribbler do for an upstanding... She belched. Young lady like yourself. I would like some information if you can provide it, Makoto said. I know that you often pursue stories that other people avoid. You were sniffing around Shujin during that mafia incident. Oh, yeah. Kane, who's his face? Hated that guy. Hated... I think I did a drunk voice all the way back in Journey of a Lifetime, did I? With that in mind, there's a certain rumor I've been investigating, and I have a hunch that you might have been looking into it as well. Lala discreetly set down Ohya's glass, stepped away from the bar, and began to polish her other glasses, the default state of any bartender with nothing better to do. Still, Makoto saw that she kept one eye on the door, ready to divert anyone else who walked in. Ohya grinned and picked up her drink. Well, ask away and you shall receive. What do you know about Paranoia Syndrome? And just like that, Ohya's smile was gone. Her face twisted into something almost like a snarl, her upper lip peeling back from her teeth like a dog's. Oh, hell, she said. And here I thought you'd ask me about something worth a shit. So you don't know anything? You wasted a train ride, princess. I'm confused. Is she sobered up, or do I still need to keep doing the drunk voice? Please, Makoto's voice tightened. Even something you've overheard can be useful. There has to be... Hey, Lala, give the princess a drink on me and get her out of here, will you? She's a minor, Ichi. Lala didn't look up from the glass she polished. We've been over this. Well, then just get her out. She's ruining my buzz. Makoto laid her palms flat on the table. Miss Ohya, if I understand right, last year you repeatedly interviewed a student from Shujin Academy, Akira Kurusu. Is that correct? Oh, is that a threat? No, that was a threatening tone of voice you just used on me. Lala, you hear that? She waved her glass in Lala's direction, splattering amber droplets on the bar. Yeah, I pumped a minor for info. So what? Ain't no law against it, and anyway, he came to me, so you can just stick that up your ass and drag it out the door. Miss Ohya, I've been threatened by professionals, little girl, and you ain't even a gifted amateur. Listen to me, goddammit! She shouted. And that got Ohya's eyes to focus again. Lala's rag stopped mid-polish. Ohya held her glass up like she wasn't sure whether to drain it or throw it in Makoto's face. I'm a friend of his, she said quieter. We received some bad news from his family early this week. He fell unconscious in his room. He's still comatose. A long, significant silence followed. Both Ohya's and Lala's eyes went wide. Finally, Ohya set down her glass. It chattered briefly against the bar top. When she spoke again, much of the slur had gone from her voice. Lala, is the back table reserved tonight? Not anymore, it isn't. I'll shut if anyone comes asking. All right. Niijima, was it? Yes. Go to the booth in the back and wait for me. Gonna take my drink along. Well, that definitely got her to sober up. Nice. The last table in Crossroads was a C-shaped booth in plush purple velvet. Barely a cigarette burn to be seen. Lala really did run a tight ship. Makoto sat down and watched Ohya navigate her way over. She was still clearly drunk, taking small, deliberate steps, and she settled into the seat beside Makoto with obvious relief. Okay, she said. So I'll ask this first. You're really friends? Close friends, yes. They've got a phrase for that, last I checked. Might be out of date, don't know. I don't listen much to kids these days. But I think it was partners in crime. Her eyes were bloodshot, but her stare had turned downright intimidating. Makoto could feel it going right through her head, carrying away her secrets. You could say that, she replied. I never got too intimate with him, though. He could be a real heartbreaker. The corner of Ohya's mouth twitched. Nice work with that bold piece of shit. Thank you. So then, Paranoia Syndrome, was it? She took a delicate sip from her glass. Yeah, I poked around a little bit, back when the rumors were just picking up. This would have been sometime in September, I think. The first couple of phone clips had gone online and everyone was poo-pooing them, but I got a kind of tickle in the back of my head. That tickle usually hasn't steered me wrong. What did you find out? It's more what I didn't find out, really. Here's a question for you. Assuming that it's real, how many cases of Paranoia Syndrome would you say there have been worldwide? She thought for a moment. Well, I have it on good authority that there's been a certain amount of skepticism, or outright suppression of those stories so far. It's only the video of Tsukiko Minami's collapse that has really picked up steam. There have only been a handful of substantiated clips posted before then, so the actual number would be higher. Dozens, possibly? That's a smart bet. She took another deeper drink. But not my estimate. Try hundreds. Makoto's mouth hung open. She had to struggle to get the words out. But hundreds? That's impossible. We'd have definitely heard about it if... Oh, you'd have heard about it, huh? You'd have heard about a disease that puts people in comas like someone just hit their off switch, that doesn't have any cure or any obvious physical symptoms, and that hits absolutely anyone completely at random. How much trouble do you think a story like that would have spreading around? I assume that you found out, Makoto said grimly. I'm used to getting an editor's boot on my neck when I go where I'm not wanted. But this was on a whole other level. Every bit of info I could dig up got scrubbed, no matter the source. Every lead I had disappeared without a trace within hours. And no one ever tried to threaten me personally, which worried me the most. Shido liked to pair his cover-ups with a little bit of violence, you know? Because in the end he was small-time enough so that he still needed to find anyone inconveniencing him and shut him up for good. But this was concerted on a massive scale. Like higher-ups all the world over had people dedicated to stamping rumors of Paranoia Syndrome out as soon as they started to pick up steam. Ohya waved a hand dismissively. My guess is that hospitals all over are having an awful lot of trouble treating these people. These comas have no symptoms. They can be written off as anything. All those grieving relatives, wanting answers, getting none. You're probably not the first bunch that lost someone close to them and went on the warpath over it. I'm surprised it's taken this long for the rumors to boil over. Do you think that someone in government could have been responsible for it? For Paranoia Syndrome itself, not just the cover-up. Like Shido with the mental shutdowns? You know, I really don't, she said. Because no one's trying to lay blame yet, see? My hunch, and it's just a hunch, is that some important people began to notice these syndrome victims a while after it really kicked off. Maybe some politician's mistress keeled over. Who the hell knows? And ever since they clued into it, everyone's been in this big panicky rush trying to suppress the news and find the culprit. They don't want to point fingers until they're absolutely sure they've got the right scapegoat. But they can't, because they can't find the cause for it. So all they can do is keep quietly burying the truth. She smiled ruefully. But the truth gets out. It always does. So you think it's real? Yeah, I do. She drained the rest of her glass and slammed it on the table. God, that poor kid. We're looking into it, Makoto said. This has become our concern now as well. Yeah? You gonna dig into it like I did? Cure the world? Reform society all over again? If we have to. I had a partner, Ohya said quietly. She got a little close to Shido and wound up in a hospital bed of her own. Mental shutdown, that old story. Our mutual friend Kurusu helped me find her. I thought that maybe once Shido was exposed and this country got some of its senses back, she'd get better. She stared at the wall. She didn't. Some things you can't fix, kid. The sickness runs too deep. All you can do is pull yourself together and soldier on. Makoto clenched her fists, and her knuckles crackled like cellophane. Ohya glanced over at her and seemed to shrink back in her seat. There was something animal in Makoto's eyes. You haven't seen what we can do, she said. If the sickness runs deep, we'll rip it out all the same. Ohya blinked, then smirked. Man, you kids, so full of hope. Saddest thing I ever saw. She flicked out a card between her fingers like a magic trick and slid it across the table. Maybe give me a call when you're done. I'll blow this story right off its hinges. Makoto pocketed the card and nodded. Thank you for your time, Mr. Ohya. And Miss Ohya. Ichiko. And when that little punk Kurusu wakes up, tell him to get in touch sometime. Makoto stood up, bowed to her and to Lala, and stepped out of the bar and into the night. After the door swung shut, Ohya pulled herself up and hobbled back to the bar. She slumped in front of Lala. "Slow night," she said. "Yeah, real slow. Looks like my reservation's all cancelled. There's a bad vibration in the air. Get me a soda or something. I've got to take the edge off." "Coming up." She turned, then stopped. "You really think those kids can do anything?" "Who the hell knows?" She shook her head and then chuckled. "But if someone really is responsible for all of this craziness, then I think that Niijima girl is going to take him apart." "That she definitely will. And that they definitely will."